Have you ever felt like no matter how much love you give, it just doesn't land the way you hoped? Like you're offering your whole heart, but something's missing on the other side? What if I told you that the way men fall in love isn't about what you do for them, but about how you make them feel about themselves when they're with you? Let that sink in for a moment, because today I want to take you into a space that goes beyond advice, beyond the rules, and into the energy that truly makes a man fall deeply, authentically in love. And here's the twist. It has almost nothing to do with him, and everything to do with you. Louise Hay taught us something revolutionary, that we attract what we believe we deserve, that every relationship we experience is a mirror, a reflection of our inner world. So if a man is pulling away, if he's non-committal, if he's emotionally unavailable, we must pause and ask, what part of me is allowing that to continue? It's not about blame, it's about awareness. And awareness is the first step to transformation. When a woman begins to love herself, truly, deeply, and unapologetically, something magical happens. Her energy changes, her standards rise, her heart opens, but her boundaries solidify. And that energy, that radiant self-love, is what men fall for. Not the version of you that chases, pleases, or overgives, but the version of you that knows she is already whole. So let's start there. With you. Close your eyes for a moment. I want you to imagine the version of you that doesn't need to be chosen, because she's already chosen herself. She walks into a room and doesn't wonder who will like her. She wonders if she will like them. Her presence isn't demanding, but it's unforgettable. She radiates peace, not because life is perfect, but because she has learned to trust herself. That is the energy that awakens something deep in a man, not because she needs love from him, but because she is love. She's no longer trying to be the perfect partner. She's committed to being the most authentic version of herself. And you know what? That version is magnetic, because a man doesn't fall in love with the woman who convinces him. He falls in love with the woman who reminds him of something he forgot he needed: emotional safety, tenderness, freedom to feel, and that unspoken knowing that her presence is a sanctuary. But to become that kind of woman, we must unlearn everything that told us we needed to earn love. So many of us grew up believing that we had to perform for affection. Be nice. Be quiet. Be agreeable. Be wanted. But Louise Hay taught us that love isn't something we chase. Love is something we become. She would say, "You've been criticizing yourself for years, and it hasn't worked. Try approving of yourself and see what happens." And when you apply this to relationships, something breathtaking unfolds. You stop needing validation from his words. You stop overanalyzing every message. You stop waiting for his attention to feel beautiful. Because now, you know, your value doesn't fluctuate based on someone else's perception. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you powerful. Because here's the truth. A man falls in love when he feels safe to let his guard down. And he only feels that way with a woman who isn't secretly doubting herself. When you are rooted in your worth, you create a space where his heart can breathe. Have you ever noticed how some women don't chase and yet they're the ones being pursued? That's not an accident. It's not a game. It's not manipulation. It's energy. It's alignment. These women aren't trying to prove themselves. They're not constantly available. They're not obsessed with winning him. They're simply living, grounded, soft, clear, and men can feel it. They can feel that this woman doesn't need to control the outcome. She trusts, not in him necessarily, but in life, in herself, in divine timing, in the idea that what is meant for her will not pass her by. This presence is rare, and in a world full of noise, that kind of silence is unforgettable. So now, I invite you to ask yourself gently, with love, am I loving him, or am I abandoning myself? Because when a man senses that you're betraying yourself for his approval, he won't trust your energy. Not because he's cruel, but because your energy is out of sync. He may not be able to explain it, but he'll feel it. Something won't click. But when you show up as the woman who honors herself, even in the tiniest ways, he will feel your alignment, and he will lean in, slowly, respectfully, genuinely. There is nothing more attractive to a man than a woman who feels like peace. Not chaos, not emotional turbulence, not insecurity disguised as passion, but calm, grounded, feminine energy. The kind of energy that doesn't demand to be chased, but effortlessly invites connection. Louise Hay reminds us that the more we love ourselves, the less we tolerate nonsense. And when you embody this, you no longer get stuck in situationships, guessing games, or emotional roller coasters. You become unavailable for confusion, and men notice. Because when a woman walks in her worth, she doesn't need to explain it. She doesn't demand love, she inspires it. And it all starts with one question: what do I believe I deserve? If deep down, you still believe you have to prove your worth, that's the wound we must heal first. Because otherwise you'll keep attracting people who reflect that lack of belief. But the moment you shift into knowing, truly knowing, that you are worthy of real love, the entire universe rearranges. That's when the man you desire begins to show up. Not because you begged, not because you played games, but because you became the version of you who finally believed she was enough. And that is how men fall in love. You see, men don't fall in love through logic. They fall through sensation, through the way you make them feel in your presence, not because of your looks, your accomplishments, or how much effort you put into them, but because of your energy. And feminine energy, the kind that invites rather than demands, the kind that flows rather than forces, is the quiet storm that awakens their heart. This is where most women go wrong. They try to do more instead of be more. But in the deepest corners of the masculine psyche, what he longs for isn't perfection, it's permission. Permission to feel, permission to be soft, permission to be held without being judged. And that permission can only be offered by a woman who has done that for herself first. So what does this look like in everyday moments? It's in the way you pause before replying, because your truth matters more than being liked. It's in how you honor your emotions, even the inconvenient ones, without turning them into weapons. It's in how you receive compliments with grace instead of deflection. These small details tell a man, I love myself, I value myself, and I'm not afraid to be seen. And in turn, it gives him the courage to love you fully, because your self-love gives him a blueprint. Louise always said, you are the only thinker in your mind, which means the thoughts you accept about yourself become the energy others receive from you. So if deep down you believe, I'm too much, I'm not enough, I always get hurt, guess what? That energy leaks out in your tone, your body language, your expectations, and even your silence. But when you rewrite those thoughts with compassion and patience, your energy shifts in real time. You become softer, you glow, you smile without even realizing it. You stop fearing rejection because you're no longer rejecting yourself. And that version of you, she doesn't chase love, she creates it. She becomes the very frequency of love. And men, whether they understand it or not, begin to feel safe enough to open. But don't confuse this with perfection. You don't have to be healed to be loved. You simply have to be honest. Vulnerability, when it's rooted in self-respect, is intoxicating. You can say, I felt hurt, without begging for reassurance. You can express, I want closeness, without demanding a label. You can walk away from confusion, not with bitterness, but with clarity. That is where a man begins to fall. Not for your beauty, but for your integrity. Because integrity, in its purest feminine form, says, I will never become less just to be loved more. And that's rare. That's what stays with a man long after the date ends, long after the texts stop, long after the world tells him to move on. It's what haunts him in the best way, because your love didn't come with pressure. It came with presence. Louise Hay taught us to use affirmations not just as phrases, but as doorways. So when you affirm, I am worthy of a love that honors me, you're not just saying words, you're tuning your energy to receive nothing less. And the moment you believe that, truly believe it, You will stop settling for breadcrumbs. You will stop making excuses for inconsistent behavior. You will stop romanticizing potential. You will begin to love with boundaries, with standards, with softness that doesn't bend for chaos. Because real love is not chaotic. Real love doesn't confuse you. Real love is calm, clear, uplifting. Men fall in love when they feel like they can breathe around you, when your energy feels like a pause in a world that's always rushing. And the way you create that energy is by becoming that pause for yourself first. That means not rushing into labels just to feel secure. That means not overgiving to prove your worth. That means not abandoning your needs just to keep his interest. It means being full on your own, so that when he comes, he's not filling a void, he's joining your abundance. This is how you make a man want to commit, not through pressure but through peace, because when you feel like home to yourself, you become home to him too. And the truth is, most men are secretly aching for that. They're tired of performance, tired of proving, tired of being misunderstood. What they want is to be seen, not just admired, but truly seen. And that kind of vision can only come from a woman who sees herself clearly first. So here's the question. Can you hold yourself with enough tenderness, enough grace, enough presence, that a man feels safe doing the same with you? Because when you do, something sacred happens. He begins to show up, not from ego, but from essence. Not to impress you, but to connect with you. He stops performing and starts revealing. And it all began not because you chased, not because you gave more, not because you changed who you are, but because you remembered who you've always been. What if falling in love wasn't about two people becoming one, but about two complete souls recognizing each other? That idea alone changes everything. Because suddenly it's no longer about convincing a man to choose you. It's about being so connected to your own essence that his choice feels natural, effortless, inevitable. Men don't fall in love with pressure. They fall in love with alignment, with the way your presence reflects the peace they crave but rarely admit. You become a mirror, not to their ego but to their truth. And truth, when reflected through love, becomes irresistible. Louise Hay reminded us over and over again, we are all responsible for everything in our lives. And that includes the energy we bring into relationships. If you carry the energy of desperation, it creates resistance. But when you carry the energy of confidence and trust, it creates invitation. So here's something many women don't realize. Men are intuitive too. They may not express it like we do, but they feel, they notice, they pick up on subtleties. They can feel when you're giving from fear versus giving from love. They sense when you're hoping to be chosen versus when you've already chosen yourself. And this creates a ripple effect in their emotional world. Because the feminine energy that no longer needs to be validated becomes a catalyst for their growth. Suddenly, he doesn't just feel attracted, he feels challenged, inspired, grounded, and strangely, safe. Because you are no longer trying to control the dynamic. You are allowing love to unfold, not rushed, not forced, but nurtured with presence and patience. This is how a man's heart starts to soften, not because you demanded it, but because your energy made it safe to do so. And the beautiful paradox? The moment you stop needing him to fall in love is the moment he begins to. Because your love isn't manipulative. It's not based on how he responds. It's based on how you feel when you are with him. Do you feel expansive? Do you feel respected? Do you feel calm? Or are you shrinking, second-guessing, chasing? Louise Hay would ask, where am I not loving myself enough that I am tolerating this? And those questions aren't meant to shame us. They are meant to awaken us. Because awakening is the beginning of magnetism. The more awake you are to your own value, the more naturally magnetic you become. You won't need the right outfit, the perfect words, or a specific strategy. Your presence will do all the work. And here's something else most people overlook: consistency. A man doesn't just fall in love because of a spark. He falls in love when the energy he feels from you is stable, when it's not hot and cold, when your yes means yes, when your boundaries are gentle but firm, when your love isn't chaotic, it becomes sacred. And in that sacred space, he starts to show up differently. He listens more, he softens, he remembers details, he asks how you are, not because he has to, but because your well-being matters to him. That's not a game, that's not a manipulation tactic, that is the natural unfolding of aligned connection. But to attract that, you must become the woman who no longer settles for temporary highs. You stop chasing chemistry when it costs you clarity. You stop calling it love when it only gives you anxiety. You stop confusing effort with alignment, because Louise Hay taught us, I deserve love simply because I exist. Not because I'm perfect, not because I earned it, not because I sacrificed for it, but because my existence is already enough. When that belief becomes the core of your energy, something changes. The types of men who approach you change. The way you speak changes. The way you move, dress, even sit, all of it changes. You don't become someone else. You become more you. And that version of you. She's not irresistible because she's trying to be. She's irresistible because she is no longer willing to abandon herself for a love that can't hold her. This is the essence of feminine power. Not loud, not demanding, but undeniable. So when a man meets you, really meets you, he will feel it in his bones. He won't know why your presence feels different. He just knows it does. And here's the secret. It's because you've already done the work of falling in love. With yourself. Not in the shallow sense. Not in a surface-level self-care way. But in the deep, spiritual, soul-nourishing way that says, I trust myself. I honor my needs. I believe I am enough. And that belief, over time, becomes your most powerful love story. Because when a man falls in love with a woman like that, he doesn't fall for her body or her words or her attention. He falls for the way she makes him feel closer to himself. You become a doorway, a reflection, a sanctuary, and it all begins not with him, but with you. One of the most overlooked truths in relationships is that men fall in love with how they feel about themselves when they're with you. It's subtle, but powerful. When a man feels admired without being idolized, accepted without being coddled, and seen without being controlled, something begins to shift inside him. He feels safe to explore parts of himself he didn't even know were there. And this, beautiful soul, is where the deepest form of intimacy begins, not physical, but energetic. It's the kind of intimacy where words become less important than presence, where silence feels like connection instead of distance, where laughter is effortless, where your energy becomes a soft landing in a world that demands hardness. But here's the thing, you can't offer that kind of space to someone else until you've created it for yourself first. This is where Louise Hay's teachings become more than affirmations. They become a way of living. When you create internal space for your own emotions, your own rhythms, your own healing, you become a woman who no longer rushes through life trying to earn love. Instead, you embody it. You walk slower, you speak more intentionally, you breathe more deeply. And a man feels that. He feels that you're not searching for something outside of you, because you've already found it within. And that makes him trust you, not just with his feelings, but with his truth. That level of trust doesn't happen through effort, it happens through energy, through congruence, through emotional maturity. And what's beautiful is that men, especially emotionally mature men, crave that. They're drawn to the woman who listens more than she lectures, who doesn't try to fix him but simply holds space, who doesn't rush him into declaring love, because she knows that real connection takes time. This doesn't make you passive, this makes you powerful. Because when you can hold yourself in your own center, you become the anchor in the storm. Not just for him, but for yourself. Louise would say, I choose to feel good about myself every day. And when you truly do, you stop depending on a man to regulate your worth. That's when love becomes a choice, not a survival mechanism. You no longer date from fear. You date from abundance. You no longer seek validation. You create resonance, and when you enter a man's life with that kind of presence, you disrupt every pattern of superficiality he's known. You don't just offer love, you offer depth. And depth is rare. It's unforgettable. Men may be conditioned to seek pleasure, but what they long for, deep down, is peace. Not the absence of challenge, but the presence of emotional clarity. When he feels that he can rest in your energy without losing himself, he begins to show you more. Not just his achievements or confidence, but his tenderness. And this is where emotional intimacy takes root, not when he's trying to impress you, but when he feels free to be real with you. That kind of realness is only possible when the woman he's with doesn't need to be entertained or rescued, when she's already whole. So the question becomes, what are you attracting from your current emotional state? If you're still attracting men who fear commitment, who avoid depth, who ghost when things get real, it's not a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that your energy still believes you must settle for less. And that belief isn't yours. It was learned. From childhood, from trauma, from heartbreak. But it can be unlearned. You can retrain your nervous system to believe that love can feel safe, that love can feel grounded, that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. Because the love you accept is a reflection of the love you offer yourself. Louise Hay's greatest message was this: love is always the answer to healing. So instead of asking, why hasn't he chosen me? Ask, where am I still choosing pain over peace? And when you start choosing peace, every day in every little way, you change your frequency. Your energy no longer vibrates at desperation or anxiety or people-pleasing. It vibrates at self-trust, at joy, at quiet power. And men feel that, even the ones who can't put it into words. Some will try to rise to meet you. Others will fall away. Let them. Because when a man is ready to love at the level you now live at, he won't hesitate. He won't need to be convinced. He'll recognize you not because you begged for attention, but because your energy called to him in silence. That is the divine feminine. She doesn't chase. She doesn't beg. She doesn't shrink. She simply becomes. And in her becoming, she is met. And now, maybe for the first time, you begin to understand that love isn't something you run after. It's something you radiate. That the way a man falls in love with you is never separate from the way you fall in love with yourself. That the most magnetic, unshakable, unforgettable kind of love always begins within. So if today's message touched something deep inside of you, it's not by accident. Maybe your soul was just waiting for a reminder. A soft whisper that says, you are worthy now. You are enough now. You don't have to become anything else to deserve love. The only thing left is to remember. And when you do, when you walk through the world with the energy of someone who no longer needs to be chosen to feel lovable, you become a woman a man doesn't just desire. You become the woman he never forgets. Because your love isn't performative. It's not loud. It's not desperate. It's steady. It's sacred. It's safe. And that beautiful soul is how men fall in love. If this resonated with you, even just a little, I invite you to be part of something bigger. Share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment and tell me, what part of you are you ready to love more deeply? And if you haven't already, subscribe, because this space is your space. Your healing, your softness, your remembering. Together, let's create a ripple of conscious love that reaches every woman who's ever doubted her worth. You are not alone in this, and your journey has just begun.